welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. For over 3 years, the Wuhan virus impacted our lives in more ways than one. It snatched away lives and livelihoods, upended our lives, and we continue to live with it. Our cover story tonight is about some questions that have been plaguing us and how we might have their answers now. Was the Wuhan virus a bioweapon? Did China start developing the Wuhan virus in 2016? Was China running a secret program in the Wuhan lab? We tell you all about the findings of an investigation and what they tell us. That's in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, we get you gut-wrenching stories of miraculous escape in the aftermath of the Colombian plane crash. Why is there a row over the Nepal Prime Minister's visit to a Hindu temple? Why is it being slammed as an out-of-character move? The UK is set to get a female Lord Chief Justice after, hold your breath, 755 years. We tell you more. Are you ready for a Crapsule? Believe it or not, there are ways in which human feces can cure you. We tell you more. Was the Wuhan virus a bioweapon? Did China start developing this virus in 2016? Was the aim to create the deadliest coronavirus ever? Was the intention to infect as many people as possible? Was a secret program being carried out in the Wuhan lab? And was it China's deadly experiment that killed 7 million people around the world and left you and me scarred for life? Tonight, we are coming to you not just with questions, but answers. Answers that some of you may not be ready for, but answers that are required to finally start the long due process of bringing the culprits to justice. These answers are based on a detailed investigative report by the Sunday Times. One investigator told the paper, and I'm quoting, "It has become increasingly clear that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was involved in the creation, promulgation, and cover-up of the COVID-19 pandemic." Note those words: creation, promulgation, and cover-up. That is what Xi Jinping's China is being accused of. Our cover story tonight begins in the Wuhan lab, or the infamous and notorious Wuhan Institute of Virology. This report says that in the lead up to the pandemic, scientists in Wuhan were combining the world's most deadly coronaviruses. A coronavirus refers to a group of RNA viruses that can cause respiratory illness in human beings. Most of you already know this. So the question you should be asking is, what was the need for such an experiment? Was China trying to create a bioweapon? There is no ruling this out because the Wuhan scientists were not alone in the experiment. Accompanying them were Chinese military personnel in lab coats. You heard that right. What job do they have in a science lab? Unless, of course, they are working on a combined confidential bioweapon project. 5 years before the pandemic started, scientists in the Chinese military wrote a paper. That paper predicted a third world war, not any ordinary war, but one where viruses serve as bioweapons. The paper talks about coronaviruses, quote-unquote, heralding a new era of genetic weapons. And it goes on to say, how these weapons can be unleashed in a way never seen before. Well, the Wuhan virus did unleash a once-in-a-lifetime crisis. And these Chinese scientists knew this because they were likely already working on weaponizing coronaviruses. Let me just read out what the Sunday Times published. Investigators who scrutinized top-secret intercepted communications and scientific research believe Chinese scientists were running a covert project of dangerous experiments which caused a leak from the Wuhan Institute of Virology and started the COVID-19 outbreak. You see, the ball was set rolling in 2003. That is when the Wuhan lab began experimenting with SARS and the origin of SARS. Soon, the lab started hunting for coronaviruses in China's many bat caves and experimenting with these dangerous viruses. None of this was safe, and the lab knew it. But its scientists justified toying with coronaviruses. How? Well, they said the risk was worth it because their work may help develop vaccines for coronaviruses. Those vaccines never came. But in the year 2016, people in Yunnan province started falling sick. They had symptoms similar to SARS. Many of these people died. The scientists realized these people were infected with a new type of coronavirus. And what did they do? They hid this critical and deadly information from people. Instead, samples from the multiple coronaviruses found in Yunnan were carried to the Wuhan lab. The report says these very viruses are now recognized as the only members of COVID-19's immediate family known to have been in existence pre-pandemic. Basically, they could possibly be viruses that mutated into COVID-19. A classified program reportedly began after Yunnan to make the virus found there more infectious to human beings. And cut to 2019, people in Wuhan started falling sick. What had happened in the lead up to the outbreak? In November 2019, researchers working in this program started falling sick with symptoms eerily similar to COVID-19. They were taken to the hospital. Soon, others in Wuhan started falling sick. People started dying. Cut to March 2020, Wuhan virus was declared a pandemic. 7 million people lost their lives. And this, by the way, is just the official number. Were they killed by China's bioweapon? Were they victims of China's dangerous craft? Does China have blood on its hands? And how long before China is made to pay for the pandemic? It's been almost 4 years, and it's time you put pressure on those in power to hashtag make China pay. And our next story is from Ukraine. Last week, it started its much-anticipated counteroffensive. And a week on, it claims to have made the first big gains. Have a look at this report. Ukraine says it has, quote-unquote, liberated 4 villages in the country's southeast. And this marks the first, yet modest, victory in its counteroffensive. So, which villages has Ukraine liberated? Well, there is Blahodatny, Neskuchny, Markarivka, and Sorozevi. They are all located in the Donetsk region. In fact, footage released by the Ukrainian army shows troops celebrating in these villages by holding up the Ukrainian flag near the abandoned Russian settlements. And when asked about the operation, they said at least 10 Russian soldiers were killed, 4 were taken prisoners, and then the rest ran away, leaving everything behind. Listen to this.
Marines of the 35th Separate Brigade have liberated Stozherev village. Glory to Ukraine.
At first, the enemy resisted, trying to repel our attack with artillery. We managed to take initiative into our hands and slowly, house by house, we started to recapture the village. Approximately, we killed 10 enemy soldiers and took 4 prisoners.
The Russians run away leaving everything. It's a mess, terrible mess.
Now here's the thing. While the capture of the 3 villages marks the biggest advance in recent days, the settlements are relatively small. In fact, some of them had a pre-war population of just 1,000 residents. That said, these villages, which have been the center of intense fighting in recent days, sit on roads leading towards the city of Mariupol. And analysts say that this could lay the groundwork for Ukraine to recapture the port city in the coming months. And what does Russia have to say about this? Nothing at all. Moscow is yet to confirm the fall of any of these villages. And instead, it is speaking of repelling Ukrainian assaults in the region. Have a look at this report. Moscow claims that it has repelled Ukrainian offensives in the Donetsk and Zaporizhia regions. How exactly? By hitting targets with sea-launched high-precision missile strikes. And that's not all. Russia has also allegedly blown up another dam. This time in the Zaporizhia region. Ukraine says the dam was blown up by Russians who have controlled it since February last year. This is what a spokesperson for Ukraine's military had to say about this. Let me quote. The enemy is getting nervous and using any means to prevent a breakthrough of their defense line right here. They continue to blow up the dams of smaller reservoirs. We have information that the enemy blew up a dam near the settlement of Novodrivka, and this led to the flooding of both banks of the Mokryali River. But can Ukraine's claims be believed? And what really is the guarantee that the Russians were really behind this? Well, there is none. Not for this dam, neither for Novokakhovka. The Russians say Ukraine itself is destroying these dams to thwart the Russian advance, that this is all part of Kiev's counteroffensive strategy. And here's another way the counteroffensive is playing out. Have a look at these images. These are Ukrainian attack helicopters flying sorties on Russian positions. The Ukrainian armed forces also shared a video which showed a helicopter during a combat mission firing rockets onto Russian positions during one of its sorties. And this is more proof that the counteroffensive is underway in full swing.
Our job is to hit enemy targets on the ground, their soldiers, their equipment, their fortified positions. Our rockets can chase them out of their fortifications.
And overall, a total of 25 battles have taken place in the last 24 hours. Some of the battles are still underway, in fact, and both sides say their forces have inflicted heavy damage. Both sides saying that the enemy has lost equipment and personnel. At this point, it's next to impossible to confirm who really is speaking the truth. But here's what we can tell you. Not all is well within Russia's ranks, especially between the Russian army and the Wagner group. You see, the differences between the two are only widening, so much so that Russia could soon take control of the Wagner group. Russia's Deputy Defense Minister Nikolai Pankov said on Saturday that quote-unquote volunteer formations will be asked to sign contracts directly with the Russian Ministry of Defense. This rather vaguely worded statement is widely believed to target the group. But the question is, will the group sign such a contract? How will they respond? No, says the Wagner chief, speaking from the battlefield. Yevgeny Prigozhin declared that Wagner will not sign any contract with the Russian Defense Ministry. Listen to this.
ЧВК «Вагнер» не будет подписывать никаких контрактов Шойгу. ЧВК «Вагнер» органично встроена в общую систему. ЧВК «Вагнер» согласует свои действия с генералами справа, слева, с командирами подразделений, имеет глубочайший опыт.
And how exactly should we view this? Are the fissures between Wagner and the Russian army set to widen? Will Russia's most dangerous mercenary group start a mutiny? We will find out soon enough. And our next story is about survival. And it's nothing less than a miracle. It's a story of 4 Colombian children. They survived a deadly plane crash. And that's not all. They also lived through the dangers of the Amazon for 40 long days. I want you to know their names first. Leslie Jacobo Bonber is 13 years old. Solesny Ranok is 9. Tien Noriel Ranok is merely 4. And the youngest of them, Christian Nariman Ranok, just turned 1. These are the children who lost their mother. They wandered around in the Amazon forest and came out on the other side. On the 1st of May, the children were aboard an aircraft. They were flying from Araraquara to San Jose del Goviar with their mother. And suddenly, the plane's engine failed. The pilot declared an emergency, and soon the aircraft fell off the radar. The search for survivors started. The plane's wreckage was found 2 weeks later. The bodies of 3 adults were still inside, but there was no sign of the children. And this filled the rescuers with hope. This meant that the children were still alive. Operation Hope was launched. 150 soldiers, 200 volunteers from local indigenous communities started searching for the lost children. So did a team of 10 Belgian Shepherd dogs. But, you see, it was no easy feat. They had over 300 kilometers of the Amazon forest before them. A virgin forest so thick that the sun barely reaches the floor. Experts say any person can get lost within 20 to 30 meters. It's almost like the forest swallows people up. There are jungle predators, and in case you survive them, there are armed groups as well. As the search pounded on, rescuers came across a makeshift shelter. It was made out of sticks and branches. They also found small footprints, half-bitten fruits, a pair of scissors, some hairbands, and nappies in the rainforest mud. It was just enough to keep the hunt going. Helicopters hovered over the area around the crash. It broadcast messages from the lost children's grandmother telling them they had not been forgotten. The days stretched into weeks, the weeks into a second month. Hope slowly started to wane. Colombians started to wonder if they were deluding themselves. But Brigadier General Pedro Sanchez was confident. He said the children were alive because bodies would be easier to find as compared to a small group moving through the forest. You see, it wasn't a search for a needle in a haystack. It was for a tiny flea in a vast carpet of the jungle. How did the children manage to stay alive for this long? 40 days in a dangerous forest like the Amazon. No child's play. Other than these 4, of course, they belong to Huetito indigenous community, and they had their grandma to thank for their survival skills. The children wrapped rags around their feet, and this protected them as they moved through the muddy forest floor. The timing was also in their favor. The jungle was in harvest. The children ate cassava flower fruits. They had small tents, a small tent made of a tarpaulin and a small towel on the floor. They always stayed near the river to easily access the water. On Friday, around 4 p.m., Colombia's local time, army radios crackled into life. It said, Miracle, 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 and miracle. Miracle is an army code for a child found alive. Repeated 4 times, it meant all 4 had survived. Malnourished and covered in insect bites, the children had been found by the rescue team. It was a relief for the family members and for the entire country. This is what their father had to say.
This is a miracle from God and as beliefs of indigenous people. For us, this is a test God is giving me, how much faith I have in Him, and I have said it with my own words, as I said it initially. We as indigenous people are able to search, demonstrating to the world that we found the plane, demonstrating to the world that we found the children.
It wasn't just a win for their family, but for the entire country. Listen into what the Colombian president had to say as well.
The first news is that indeed, the indigenous communities participating in the search, along with the Colombian military, have found the 4 children after 40 days. They were alone. It was them who achieved a great exemplary survival. It will become history. These children are today the children of peace and the children of Colombia.
And when the crew finally found the children, the eldest daughter, Leslie, with Christian in her arms, ran towards them. The rescuers have detailed what it was like. Have a look.
The one who directed everything in the 40 days was the eldest. Leslie was very intelligent because when we checked the briefcase, we checked what she was carrying. She took the tent, towel, camping equipment. She took a torch with a couple of batteries, but it was dying out. The 2 mobile phones, which I think they used to distract themselves at night, a music box, and the bottles of soda.
The boys were so weak that they could not move much. They were lying down when the rescue team arrived. One of them asked for some bread and rice pudding. One got up and said, "My mom is dead." Their mom was in fact alive for at least 4 days after the crash, and she told them to leave and find help as she lay there dying. One can only imagine what she had to go through. But at least her children survived. The forest was so thick that the rescue helicopter could not land. The children were airlifted as the helicopter hovered above the canopies, and they were soon evacuated to the town of San Jose del Guavere and later taken on a military medical plane to Bogota. And there they finally were reunited with their father, uncle, and grandparents. And our next story is about 3 leaders who, even after leaving their office, continue to remain in deep trouble. I'm talking about Nicola Sturgeon, Boris Johnson, and Donald Trump. You see, all 3 of them are being held accountable for their actions in office. Our next report getting you the complete story.
3 former leaders, 3 big controversies, and 3 massive setbacks. This is the story of Nicola Sturgeon, Boris Johnson, and Donald Trump. All 3 of them are in the eye of the storm. Sturgeon was recently arrested in a finances inquiry. Boris Johnson has been forced to resign as an MP, and Donald Trump has been indicted for the 2nd time. Their struggles may be different, but what unites them is their fate. All 3 were once at the helm of power. All 3 were then driven out of that power. And all 3 of them are now paying the price for abusing their power. This only shows how the business of being in the top office is not just hard while you're there, but also once you leave. Let's start with Nicola Sturgeon, the former First Minister of Scotland. On Sunday, she was arrested and questioned by detectives over allegations of financial misconduct by her party. The charges include spending £660,000, that were raised through a fundraiser for the personal gain of party members. The list of accused also includes Sturgeon's husband, Peter Morell. He was arrested in April, but released without a charge. Sturgeon, too, was arrested and later released without charges, but observers say she's still not out of trouble. Next we have Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister of Britain. He has resigned from his seat in the House of Commons. Why? Because of a political witch hunt, says the former leader. You see, Johnson took the decision after seeing the findings of a probe into whether he misled the parliament on parties held at 10 Downing Street during the lockdown. The findings are yet to be made public. The probe is yet to be concluded, but Johnson says the committee behind the probe is bent on declaring him guilty. So he's resigned to save himself the embarrassment. Observers say this could be the beginning of the end of his political career.
I think it's quite surprising that he has. I wasn't expecting it, but with everything that's happened over the past 2 to 3 years, I think it's kind of the push comes to shove. He's gone. He had no choice to leave.
I'd got to say probably that it's for the best. During the pandemic, he sort of stiffed the country over and has not been held accountable for it.
Egregiously corrupt the Biden administration.
And last but not the least, there's Donald Trump, the former US president. He has been indicted once again, this time in a classified documents probe. The charges include conspiracy, false statements, obstruction of justice, and retaining classified documents under the Espionage Act. Last we checked, he was going to appear before a federal court in Florida. The hearing will be held on Tuesday. Observers say it might just spell the end of Trump's political career.
Today we're going to make a caravan to mark the president's birthday, and besides that, to support him from today on, because of the injustice that is being done to President Trump. This is simply a witch hunt because they want to take him out of the political race.
It's a bunch of, I don't want to say it, but you know what? It's just a witch hunt. It's a BS. It's a, they try to, why they're doing it now?
The magnetism of the drama swirling around the three of them, that the actions of leaders during their tenure in office do not really end with the end of the tenure. They sometimes hound them for years to come. As they say, what goes around comes around.
What's your message to the country, Mr.
Bureau
Johnson?
Report, WION World is One.
And our next story comes from Nepal. The Prime Minister's visit to a Hindu temple in the country has triggered a massive controversy. What is this about? And why is the visit at the center of a heated debate? Take a look at our next report to find out.
Politically motivated and out of character. These are some of the labels that have been used by the opposition to describe the Nepal Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal's visit to a Hindu temple. On Saturday, the Nepal Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal or Prachanda visited the Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu. Situated on the banks of the Bagmati River, this was the communist leader's first visit to the premises of the temple. With him were 5 cabinet ministers, including the foreign minister. According to reports, the Prime Minister's Secretariat said that Prachanda's visit to the temple was solely intended for observation purposes. But the visit has triggered a major controversy. It has led to statements like this one from the CPN UML senior leader Bishnu Rijal. According to him, the Prime Minister is displaying a contradicting character because Maoists have always criticized Hindu rituals. He attacked the leader, saying that during the 10-year-long insurgency, Maoist rebels prohibited the public from performing funeral rituals in their own Hindu traditions, and questioned if the Prime Minister is only doing this for political benefit or there is a real transformation. Meanwhile, according to the former Prime Minister Baburam Bhattarai, when the Prime Minister and the entire cabinet visit a religious place together, it takes a political dimension and naturally questions and concerns arise. That's not all. From May 31st to June 3rd, Pushpa Kamal Dahal was in India, and while in the country, his visit to the Mahakaleshwar temple in Ujjain in the state of Madhya Pradesh also made headlines. Some analysts believe that the latest temple visit may have been aimed at appeasing the Hindu community and expanding the Prime Minister's voter base. But what has led to this? Basically, the realization among major parties in Nepal that antagonizing the Hindu population is not in their interest. After all, the Hindu population accounts for 81% of the total population. With Saloni Murakka in Nepal, Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Our next story will make your eyebrows touch the ceiling, and it's about more than just breaking the glass ceiling. The UK is set to get its first ever woman Lord Chief Justice, and this will mark the end of a male stronghold on a post that dates back 755 years. Ever since the inception of this post 7 centuries back, the UK has never had a woman Lord Chief Justice, not until now. Let me just directly introduce you to the shortlisted judges. The first is Dame Victoria Sharp, a 67-year-old senior judge. The second is Dame Sue Carr, a 58-year-old appeal court judge. And one of them will soon assume the top judicial post. And here's how the process will work out. The selected women will be recommended to the UK Prime Minister and then approved by King Charles. And this will end the streak of men in that post since it was established in 1268. There have been 100 men who have served as the Lord Chief Justice. And now, with the appointment of a woman, the law may have to be amended to accommodate the title of Lady Chief Justice. This is necessary because the post has never been held by a woman and it remains written into the UK's constitutional law as solely a male title in the form of Lord. So who is it going to be? Well, the leading candidate is Dame Victoria Sharp. She is the twin sister of Richard Sharp, the former Goldman Sachs banker who recently stepped down as the chairman of the BBC. Reports in the British media, in fact, describe her as someone who is known for putting in long hours. They say she and her doctor husband sometimes work 14-hour days while raising their 4 children. In fact, she once even experienced labor while she was in court. The next candidate is Dame Sue, a mother of 3 who was educated at Trinity College, Cambridge. She has been a Court of Appeal judge since April 2020 and is known for her outwardly and confident personality. The result will be announced within the next 2 weeks by Alex Chalk, the Lord Chancellor and Justice Secretary. That said, whoever the next head of the judiciary will be, she will have a lot on her plate as the number of backlogs provide a sheer challenge in itself. I have a question for you now, a rather peculiar one. Do you think human feces is of any use? What a bizarre question, you must be thinking. Now, you might find this repulsive, but would you ever eat it? What if your life depended on it? What if I told you that feces is not just toxic waste, but contains the secret to human health? First, answer this. Do you know about Clostridium infections? The bacterial disease afflicts 500,000 people in the US each year. About 29,000 of them die. It basically generates toxins in infected persons' bodies and ultimately destroys the lining of the gut. But now scientists have discovered a whole new way to fight this infection. It's called fecal microbiota transplant, or FMT. What is the procedure all about? Patients are given a fecal milkshake via a tube that passes through their nose to the stomach, or they take it in the form of a capsule, or should I say crapsule. And what does this concoction do really? Well, it restores the metabolism of bile, it blocks the bacteria's growth and controls the infectious disease. Scientists also suspect that it carries out bioremediation, that is, the fecal microorganisms break down and eliminate the toxins present in a patient's gut. Though it does sound disgusting, FMT is gaining a lot of traction. It is proving to be effective in multiple studies. It is also being investigated in hundreds of trials around the world and has been successful to varying degrees. And these, by the way, include trials for inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, obesity, acute malnutrition, diabetes, arthritis, hepatic encephalopathy, liver transplants, skin cancer, autoimmune diseases, Alzheimer's, and other conditions, even bipolar disorder, hair loss, depression, and recurrent urinary tract infections. The method is yielding promising results, but the logistics cannot be underestimated. Fecal donors are difficult to find. Some studies use friends and families, others use staff members, volunteers, and even pooled samples taken from lots of donors mixed together. It is now an entire industry, in fact. Fecal transplants can be purchased frozen from biobanks. And then there are super donors. Their feces seem to contain some magical ingredient that makes it particularly effective. However, researchers don't quite understand why this happens. Donors are carefully screened for transmittable diseases or parasites. They undergo a rigorous screening questionnaire, medical interview and examination, and this is followed by blood and stool testing. Fecal samples are taken only when the donors are deemed fit. Sounds quite bizarre, does it not? FMT might be an alien concept for many of us today, but this medical practice is ancient. Feces has been drunk since the 4th century AD. The concoction is called yellow soup and treats infective diarrhea. In fact, in 1958, an innovative surgeon named Dr. Ben Eisenman also resorted to this method. He administered fecal enemas to his patients who had severe and recurrent clostridioides infections. Despite being remarkably effective, the procedure was largely ignored. Why was that? Maybe due to general aversion to feces. Scientists are just beginning to map out the microbial life in human bodies, and fecal transplantation is a critical tool for that. It is being used to cure multiple health disorders. In this backward world, human excrement is actually becoming a therapy. Who would have thought? New Zealand's national radio broadcaster has launched an investigation and also put a staff member on leave. This comes after it was found that a series of news stories published on its website about Russia's invasion of Ukraine were edited to present a quote-unquote false account of events. Radio New Zealand, the government-funded broadcaster, has stated that it had by Sunday corrected 15 stories on its website dating back to April 2022 because of what it termed inappropriate editing. The stories were allegedly edited to present pro-Russian interpretations of some events in Ukraine as fact. The RNZ is a media client of Reuters. The evidence that emerged shows that a number of articles attributed to the Reuters wire service or the BBC had been edited by RNZ to insert new sentences and paragraphs. In fact, one story was changed to include a reference to Ukraine's pro-Western government, quote-unquote, suppressing ethnic Russians. while another described the 2014 Maidan Revolution that toppled pro-Moscow President Viktor Yanukovych as a coup. Neither Reuters nor the BBC so far have given any comments on the incident. A spokesperson for New Zealand's Minister for Broadcasting and Media has stated that the minister had been briefed on the matter and would get further updates from officials. We will be tracking this very closely. Moving on for now, it's a big day in Korean pop today. Any guesses why? Well, the most famous band from South Korea, BTS, completes 10 years. And to celebrate, BTS Army, or the fans as they are called, flocked to hotspots around Seoul. The country, in fact, unveiled a special commemorative stamp series to celebrate the K-pop group. While fans may claim that they know just about everything about their favorite pop sensation, here are some lesser-known facts about this band.
On June 12, 2013, a group of 7 Korean boys released their debut single album, Too Cool for School. The album did not do well. Cut to 2023, BTS, which comprises of RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V and Jungkook, is a global phenomenon. People across the world love K-pop. Thanks to them, they are everywhere. The Grammys, the United Nations, Guinness World Records and the White House. Those who follow the group call themselves the Army. And there are millions of them around the planet. While the Army may claim that they know everything about BTS, here are some things you must know about them. The group's name BTS stands for Bangtan Sonyeondan. It translates to Bulletproof Boy Scouts in English. According to the member J-Hope, the name signifies the group's desire to block out stereotypes, criticisms and expectations that aim at adolescents like bullets. RM learnt English by watching Friends. The leader of the group is RM, one of the best English speakers in the band. But guess how did he learn the language? Well, he once said that he learnt English by watching the popular 90s sitcom Friends. Unlike most K-pop bands, BTS is known for writing most of their music. Though their roots are in hip-hop, the group has evolved to become one of the biggest pop groups in the world. The septet has never shied away from taking a stand on socio-political issues, be it mental health or racial discrimination. They have used their voice for good. And that is perhaps why, even though 2 BTS members, Jin and J-Hope, are currently serving in the military, which is mandatory in South Korea, their popularity hasn't taken a big hit. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un vowed to hold hands with Russian President Vladimir Putin and bolster strategic cooperation on their shared goal of building a powerful country, as per the Pyongyang state media. The United Arab Emirates has emerged as one of the top sources of investment for India, according to the Indian government's latest data. The UAE is now the 4th biggest investor in India, having invested over $3 billion in 2022 to 23. Marriages in China dropped in 2022 to their lowest since records began, continuing a steady decline over the past decade. According to reports, the total may have been affected by stringent COVID-19 lockdowns. In yet another incident of gun violence in the US, multiple shots were fired at a nightclub in Houston, Texas, leaving 6 people injured, with 1 in a critical condition. Former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has died at the age of 86. Berlusconi was the longest-serving Prime Minister of Italy, with a career ridden with multiple legal and sex scandals. Pakistanis in the country's northwest dealt with the aftermath of heavy rains that swept through the area on Sunday, that caused several houses to collapse. At least 25 people were dead and 145 others injured. Rain and hail hit multiple districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province and uprooted trees and knocked down electrical transmission towers. The World Food Programme is launching an appeal to international donors to help people in Haiti avoid starvation, with nearly half of the population facing acute hunger and malnutrition on the rise due to insecurity, violence, and worsening economic conditions. The WFP states that hunger has reached record levels. One of the most active volcanoes in the world, Kilauea in Hawaii, continues to erupt. The volcano erupted again after a 3-month pause. Indian batter Subman Gill has been fined 15% of his match fee for criticizing the TV umpire's decision in the World Test Championship final against Australia. India have been fined their entire match fee for maintaining a slow over rate, while champions Australia have been docked 80% of fees for the same reason. Nick Taylor has become the first home winner at the Canadian Open in 69 years after beating Tommy Fleetwood in a playoff. Taylor made a 72-foot putt on the 4th playoff hole to claim his 3rd PGA Tour title.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. We are leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.
Harap dito. Parang